appear to have enough members here to get started, so I will call to order the May 25th meeting of the State Allocation Board. Please call the roll.
Senator Hancock. Senator Liu. Here. Senator Huff. Here. Assemblymember Nazarian. Assemblymember Bonilla. Assemblymember Chavez.
Here.
Nick Schweizer.
Here.
Cesar Diaz.
Here.
Jeffrey McGuire.
Here.
Irena Ortega.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, we will start with the minutes from the April 20th meeting. Any comments from anyone on the minutes? Okay, is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Diaz.
Second.
Second by Mr. McGuire. Please, well, let's just say all in favor of approval of the minutes. Say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? I don't see any, so that passes. And we'll move to Lisa.
So we just want to highlight a few items on the executive officer statement. We currently have a priority funding round that's opened. It opened on May 11th and it closes June 9th. There's currently close to $55 million in projects that are eligible to submit for the certification round, and the deadline is June 9th. So once those valid certifications come in, they'll be valid from July 1st to December 31st. So if there's cash induced into the program, those projects will be eligible for the cash.
Okay.
And then we also wanted to provide the board an update on the seismic mitigation program. There is an item in the consent agenda that is going to receive an unfunded approval, and it's for Bradley High School for the auditorium project. And we also wanted to share the priority funding fund releases that the board had apportioned back in February. Quite a bit of projects have gone out for funding. Over $71 million in fund release requests have been received out of the $81 million, and the deadline was yesterday. So I'm sure we'll have almost all of those trued up, and we'll report out at the next meeting. And we also wanted to give the board an update about the fund releases for the career tech education projects. There was a couple batches of apportionments. They had extended timelines, and there was a timeline that lapsed just recently, and only one project didn't make it. So we wanted to report that to the board. And then we'll be monitoring the next batch of projects that have due dates of September 7th this year, and we'll provide updates as we get closer to the deadline of whether or not those projects do come in. And then the last item we wanted to share is we anticipate a meeting June 22nd.
Okay. All right, any questions for Lisa? Any public comment on any of those items? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent calendar.
Consent's ready for your approval.
Okay. Any questions or comments on consent? Any public comment on any of the consent items? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
Moved.
Moved by Mr. Diaz.
Second.
Second by Mr. Chavez. And we'll note that Assemblymember Bonilla has also joined us. So all in favor of approval of the consent calendar, say aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions, objections? I'm going to hold that open. I know we have two members not here yet, and they might want to add their vote on when they join us. So we'll move to the status of fund releases.
So on stamp page 82, I know we've been sharing with the board the activity of the fund releases and related to the apportionments that went out in February. And so we wanted to share that it's a marginal amount of money that did go out, close to $7 million. And that's it as far as reporting that activity. And as far as the financials, updates on the approvals, there's 10 projects being presented in the consent agenda that's worth close to $9 million. Some of those are facility hardship projects and seismic projects, so wanted to update, and a few conversions for charter schools. Wanted to update on that activity. And there's also funds reverting back into the program as a result of conversions and closeouts, and that represents $3.6 million. And that's all we have to share tonight.
Okay. Welcome, Senator Hancock. All right. Any questions for Lisa? Any public comment on any of the financial information? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move to item 6, which is an appeal. This is on Montague Elementary School.
Brian LePasque with the Office of Public School Construction. This appeal is for the Montague Elementary School District in Siskiyou County. It's a small rural district of just 200 pupils, and this particular project is an emergency repair program portable replacement project. ERP projects that require DSA approval have 21 months from the apportionment to complete the project and submit final expenditures. The deadline for this particular project was May the 20th of this year. The district notified us that they would not be able to meet that timeline due to inclement weather and a few other circumstances within the district. They were unable to meet that deadline, so they're requesting an extension to July 19th. We've done our research on this project, and we believe that the project will be complete by July 19th. However, we're unable to administratively approve any kind of an extension for these projects, so we are seeking board direction on their request.
Okay. Before I take any questions, I do have a speaker card from, let's see, I don't know how to pronounce the last name, but it's Marnie Posel. Please, come on up. Did you have any comments? Yeah, please join us here.
First of all, I want to thank you for,
Have a seat.
have a seat.
Sure.
I've never done this before.
Oh, yeah, please.
I want to thank you all for allowing us to be here today, and, sorry. This one. Thank you for allowing me to be here today, and I am representing Montague Elementary School. I'm the new superintendent. We have 200 students who are high poverty students. We have over 75% free and reduced lunch at our school. This project was begun far before my time, about 8 years ago. And this summer, I came on board. I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous. Came on board, and I thought everything was going as expected. But as Brian said, inclement weather, also not being able to get the portable that we needed because we needed to have a 40-pound snow load. Yada, yada, lots of things going on. However, when I found out that there was a deadline, which I was not aware of, I contacted OPSC as soon as I knew, and talked to our architect, who is also here, and we are on board, or on the timeline to have this finished. Actually, by next week, they're going to bring in the portable building. I brought some pictures to show you that we have excavated, we've put gravel in, we have all the way up to the point where there's the concrete piers for the project. So we are utilizing those funds, and if it would be a financial hardship if right now you denied our request or our extension, and it would really impact our children.
Great, thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Okay, I don't think we have any objection to this item, so is there?
Move to grant the district's appeal.
Great. Moved by Mr. Chavez.
I have a
yes,
question to
sure.
staff. Is it typical that it takes 5.5 years to get approval for these kinds of projects? I mean, they submitted the emergency in April of 2008, and the district received its apportionment in August of 2014.
We had to wait for budget appropriation for those funds to come in order to fund those projects. So the projects were already processed. It was just we didn't have the cash from this settlement to come in, and that had to be via Budget Act.
Okay, all right. So there's a discussion with among all of us in the budget process.
Right, and so we received the funds last year.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well,
And so they were disbursements then.
Right, and I know the governor has put in another amount of dollars in this year's budget for emergency repairs. Is it typical? I mean, so the money is in there, so it wouldn't take so long to approve projects.
The funding for the project for Montague came out of the an $800 million settlement as a result of a lawsuit.
The Williams
the
settlement.
Williams settlement.
Okay,
It's my understanding that the funding this year is for something slightly different. It wouldn't be related to these types of projects.
okay, all right.
But I
Thank
do think the reason why the funds were proposed in the budget were to address things in a more timely manner, to be able
Right.
to not wait for, this one seems like a special case because it was related to a settlement, but,
Right. Okay, thank you.
okay. So we had a motion by Mr. Chavez, I think a second by Ms. Bonilla. So all in favor of approving the appeal, say aye. Aye. Any objection? Okay, that passes. I'll hold that open as well in case Mr. Nazarian joins us. So we will move on to item 7. I do want to say before we start item 7, we have asked that anyone who wishes to speak on the topic to please fill out a speaker card. It just makes it a lot easier for us to manage the number of folks who want to speak on the item. So, okay, so we will start with a staff presentation on item number 7.
So yeah, if I can direct your attention on page 151. At the April State Allocation Board meeting, the board directed staff to develop an action item with options to trigger level 3 developer fees. In April, it was an information item provided to the board with the statutory framework of developer fees. And if the school district meets the requirements to charge level 2, and if state funds of new construction are not available, then the district can start charging level 3. But the state funds are not available must be a determination by the State Allocation Board. It's no longer making new construction apportionments pursuant to Article 5 under School Facilities Program due to lack of funds. And so the background for level 3, there was never a trigger, but it was considered back by the board in 2001. And at that time, there were more requests for funding in new construction than there was bond authority. But the board had established quarterly rounds to apportion funds, and it was still making apportionments. And at the time, the board had requested that the Attorney General weigh in on the matter, and the Attorney General had made a determination that the board could not trigger level 3 as long as the board continues to approve apportionments. So in our staff analysis, there's 2 considerations. One of it is the board approving new construction apportionments under Article 5? And the second is there a lack of funds available in new construction? So we have outlined on page 152 a number of different items as far as Article 5. Article 5 really addresses new construction projects, additions, and classroom space. Article 8 specifically deals with facility hardship and seismic mitigation program funds. So the board is not approving and hasn't approved Article 5 new construction apportionments since September 2015. So several months have lapsed since that additional actions have occurred. We currently don't have any projects on the unfunded list, meaning the board has processed applications. There's currently not waiting for cash. And the board is still apportioning funds, but those funds are being directed to facility hardship under Article 8. And the board actually did take action as far as a policy to elevate those health and safety projects when we had bond authority, and made that policy a regulation back in April 2015. So yes, there's a lack of funds in new construction. There's over 17 projects that, when we did accept applications, did get processed to the board, but there's still 26 projects that are on the true unfunded list worth over $181 million. So the chart we have listed on page 153, excuse me, it's on page 154. It does show the history of the blue, meaning the designation of projects being moved through by the board that are new construction under Article 5, and the orange depicting the activity for those health and safety projects. So you can see that there has been a downturn of projects being moved through the board, and also been an increase in projects being approved by the board for facility hardship under Article 8. We also wanted to share with the board that, yes, we understand there is seismic mitigation program funds, and there was a carve-out under Proposition 1D, in which at that time the board did designate those funds for seismic mitigation program. And as a past efforts, there have been efforts in the past to move over those funds back to new construction because there was limited activity. Since then, there obviously have been quite a bit of activity and changes in the program to make that process much easier for districts to access the program funds. So those past efforts have not moved anywhere as far as trying to transfer those funds. So what we wanted to share is with the board that it does appear that within the authority that determines that new construction funds are not available, and therefore they do have the ability to trigger level 3.
Okay, thank you. Senator Liu?
I want to thank the staff for their report and for our discussion for the past couple of months on this issue, and I'd like to make a motion that this board make a finding that pursuant to Government Code Section 65995.7, state funds for new construction are no longer available. And 2, this board is no longer approving apportionments for new construction pursuant to Article 5, Chapter 12.5 of Part 10 of the Education Code due to the lack of funds for this purpose, thereby authorizing school districts to begin to impose Level 3 developer fees if they so choose. And I also move that the Secretary of the Senate and the Chief Clerk of the Assembly be notified that this determination was made as of today, May 25th, 2016.
Thank you.
That's my motion, Madam Chair.
Okay. We have a motion, and shall we open it up for discussion? Assemblymember Bonilla?
The question I have is, if the bond does pass this November, do the level 3 fees remain, or do they automatically revert back? What would be the process for, returning back to the fact that now there is funding?
The board has the ability to make a determination there's no funds available. The step as far as the locals have the ability to trigger level 3, they also have the ability to renegotiate or rescind, but that's also done at the local level. So it has no action by the board. They don't have to make an additional action.
I guess then to refine the question, is it possible that the bond passes and the money is now there and it starts to flow somehow eventually, and that level 3 would remain in effect at local levels?
There is no automatic reversal once.
Jeanette, can you identify yourself? for
I'm
the
sorry,
record?
this is Jeanette Banzon, counsel to the SAB. There is no automatic reversal of the level 3 fees once this is triggered. What happens is, unless the legislature writes it into Government Code 65995.7 that it will terminate effective a certain period, then it does that automatically. However, if there's no such language, then it will have to remain with the district to, once they did a 1 year and then they need to go back for their needs analysis, then at that time, if there's a bond that passed, they won't be able to meet the elements of 65995.7. So they cannot then, that's when level 3, they cannot charge level 3 at that time. But there is no automatic reversal unless we have statutory authority from the legislature.
Thank you. Senator Huff?
Yes, thank you. So by this motion, we would just declare we don't have money. Let me ask this question. So we talked about the seismic funds, and we have some discretion to move them into new construction funds. But if we don't do that, they're still considered the same class of funds, are they not? Let me ask the attorney that then.
The seismic funds are under Article 8, and the 65995.7 is very specific to say funds under Article 5. So the rationale for that is Article 8 are like for hardship, they're critical schools. There is an intent to continue appropriating those monies. However, to trigger level 3, we have the new construction, the Article 5, which is based on new construction only. So the reason is that I would say that Article 5 for new construction is necessary. I'm sorry, I'm trying to think through this, but what I'm trying to say is Article 8 is for critical schools. So the legislature does not intend for the SAB to stop appropriating that. They have up to 10.5 of funding in the bond funds for seismic, up to 10.5%. Because of the criticality and the necessity to keep funding. And that's the rationale for this. And that's why they've the statute limited it to Article 5, and which does not include Article 8, which is where hardship and seismic are.
I think the other point to clarify is that the board does not have authority to move the seismic funding to the new construction, correct? That has to be done statutorily. That issue has been proposed before, and it's been proposed to be done statutorily. The board does not have discretion over that.
That is true because in the bond funds language says you have up to 10.5 of the new construction funding going to seismic.
Right.
Okay, well, on that point, if it's up to 10 point whatever percent, then that could be down to 0%. Is that correct?
That is at the discretion of the board, but the board has up to 10.5 of this funding, of this new construction bond funds going into seismic. That's what the legislature authorized.
Okay, so if they authorize us to put money in, then I'm not an attorney, but it seems like we have authority to put it back because it all was designated with authority for this board. So it seems that if we're taking action to declare that it's not there, when in fact it's possible it could be moved back, I guess my question is, are you confident that this will stand a legal challenge?
Well, let me state what staff has stated, that this has been reviewed a while back, and there seemed to be, we could not get into an agreement as to what to do with the seismic funds, is what staff just stated earlier. So based on that, the seismic will likely stay where it is and will get funded to seismic applicants.
Indecision by this body would not designate whether that money is available or not. It just means this body's indecisive. If, in fact, an action of ours could put it back into new funding and we don't take that, that doesn't mean it's not available. It means we're not willing to take that action. I mean, that's how I see it.
Well, I think on the question of moving the seismic funds into new construction, the board and the legislature have determined that that is not under the discretion of the board because, and I say that because it's been proposed in the budget several years in a row and not approved by the legislature. And so the funds have remained as part of the seismic pot. So I think the question of whether the board has discretion over the seismic funds, we have decided. Now, there has not been a court case. Neither party of interest in there has litigated that question, but the board and the legislature up till now have decided the board did not have that discretion. On the question of whether new funds are being apportioned, the analysis from the staff is that the only funds that are being apportioned are those related to Article 8. And the question on the authority to authorize districts to increase the developer fees is on whether there are apportionments occurring under Article 5. And that's the question before us today. So I think there are, I will acknowledge that there are real complexities in the structure that could result in certainly folks with interest litigating those questions. But at this point, we're working under what have been the assumptions of the board and the legislature until now. Are there any other? Oh, we have several speakers, so I'll let the members continue questions, and then we'll move on. Mr. Chavez?
Just understand the timeline. If we were to make that decision today that was presented by Senator Liu, I would imagine within the first meeting in June for the school boards, they'd probably trigger this. And then if they triggered it, I'd imagine if you were a developer looking at this and you knew a bond was coming through 5 months later, that essentially they would probably not build. They'd say, why should I do this and wait 5 months and see what happens with the bond? Then the bond will go there, and I then could build the house at the lower rate because they wouldn't have, according to the lawyers, they wouldn't have the situation to have a level 3. So essentially, we'd stop building across the Winnie School District that chose to trigger this. And that would only be for the 5 or 6 months because we're going to have the election in November. Bonds have always passed for education. And so that's all we're going to do is stop building for a period of time until the bond goes. So if the bond failed, I'd be one of the first ones to support level 3 because I know we need it in the school districts. But a number of us up here actually signed on to support the bond. I know I have, because I know it's so critical for our schools. So, but I'm not interested in people being put out of work and stopping development either. So I'd wait to hear from discussions from everybody else up here, but to me, it seems short-sighted to do this. I know people want to do it, but you're not going to accomplish anything besides stop building and lose jobs. So that's kind of I've been looking at this pretty heavily because I support schools heavily, and I think also being a local government, having been there for 2 terms and worked with developers, I know exactly what they'll do. They just won't build. So if somebody can argue against that, I'd really appreciate to hear about that. Otherwise, I think that's a critical issue because this is not going to do a thing except lose jobs.
Thank you, Mr. Chavez. Any other members of the board wishing to speak at this point? Mr. Nazarian?
So I'm stuck at the same point. And if I understand you correctly, then it means what's the actual percentage of districts that do qualify for the trigger will also go ahead and make that decision to go forward? Because I don't know what that number is, and I don't know who can speak to that. But I suspect it's very small.
Well, I would only say that based on the letters and the folks who've appeared before the board to date, it is a small group of districts who are prepared to do that quickly. I think that is true. We do not have information about where other districts might be on this question. We can certainly ask some of the folks who are going to come before us today if they have any comment on that point. Okay. Are we ready to move to the public comments at this point? Okay, so I will just go in order of the slips as they've been filled out. So we'll start with Dan Cunningham from Dublin Unified. Sure, yes. And let me go ahead and call up Megan Rouse also. I'll try to call everyone 2 at a time so we can move efficiently.
Good afternoon.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us here today. Some of you might remember Dublin was back here and started this back in January. There we go. I didn't think it was on, so I'll start again. Good afternoon. Thank you for having us today, and I hope you remember us from back in January when we came and brought this issue up originally. And I want to thank the board for having the courage to have the conversation. This is, we were told when we first came up here, you're crazy, it's never going to happen, no one would even consider it. And it's taken a lot of guts to have this conversation, and we appreciate it. And the thing that's important, and to Assemblymember Chavez's comment, there might be some developers that stop developing. But then again, there might not, and depending on what their bottom line needs to look like. And so I think we need to look at the important thing, which is our communities need this. Our schools are definitely underfunded for construction, and we have students that are going to be impacted by this. And this will help provide some balance to the funding mechanism, because right now it is overly dependent on local schools. And so this is just one step to bringing some balance back in to funding of school construction. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much. My name is Megan Rouse, and I'm Vice President of the Dublin School Board, and I'm here to speak in support of Level 3 fees. Level 3 is actually complementary to our proposed regulation, which we'll talk about later. But Level 3 is about the future. It's about the houses that will be built tomorrow and the next day and the day after that, and for all of the students that will be coming to us from those homes. In the next 7 years, we expect 5,000 students coming from 7,000 homes. It costs us about $120,000 to $175,000 per student to build them a school, based on our most recent school facility needs analysis. At the moment, we collect about $17,500 per home in developer fees. We need relief. Absent state money, we need Level 3 to begin to provide that relief. We need the Level 3 fees for our students. We need it for our community. And frankly, it's the right thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ross. Amy Miller?
Hi, I'm Amy Miller, a trustee from Dublin Unified School District also. SB 50 needs reform. I think that's really one of the issues here. This law, the system, it's set up as a one-size-fits-all. And while I understand Assemblymember Chavez's point, and none of us is out to get developers. That is not why we're here. But truthfully, the developer fees are supposed to cover 50% of construction costs. In our school district right now, even with our new school facilities needs analysis, which would bring our level 2 fees up to 1066, it doesn't even come close. And without state money, we are overburdening our community. And so maybe you're right. Maybe level 3 fees is enough to make builders stop building. But if anything, it at least gives a school district some leverage to negotiate with developers. I mean, at this point, we really have none. And what's happening in Dublin is we are going out for a local bond measure, and we have never had a problem passing a bond measure in our school district. We've never had a problem passing a parcel tax. We have very severe opposition this time. And one of the reasons that they are upset with the school board is they don't feel that we are collecting high enough level 2 fees. No matter how much we explain it, we have put out in every way you can imagine the language of SB 50 to explain there's a formula that you have to follow. It's really not up to us. And we actually have negotiated with developers, and they have given us more, but we still have never come close to covering 50% of the cost of a school. So even when the state bond measure passes, and we all hope that it will, this is a discussion that has to continue. Everyone needs to be at the table, the state, the developers, and the school districts. This is about educating students, and the system today does not support this goal. So please, I ask you to support Senator Liu's proposal to put level 3 fees through. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Miller. Okay, next I'll call thank you. I'll call Ms. Westra and James Morris. Ms. Westra and Mr. Morris.
Good afternoon. My name is Sharia Westra, and I'm the Teacher Association President in Fremont. Fremont is a wonderful community. My parents grew up there. I grew up there and graduated from there. And many, many people are coming to Fremont for many reasons, for 880, for 680, for BART, and for our schools. We have 13 gold ribbon schools this year, and we're very, very proud of what we do there. The members I represent have seen the impact of the housing growth in Fremont, and we have that enrollment growth that we've been talking about because of that. And our facilities can't keep up. As a classroom teacher, we see space for 800 becoming spaces now for 1,200. Portables upon portables are being put down. Play space, PE space are being taken up. And our teachers, the impact on their learning, or their teaching and the learning is happening. We have teachers who do not have classrooms. Every 45 minutes, they go to a new classroom. They can't meet with students in between periods, and that's impacting what they can do for our students. We have students being overloaded from school to school, which means you're in this school, and when a seat opens up, you get called back, and you leave that great classroom where you've built your community, and now you start over at your school that's right across the street from that $1 million plus home you bought. Last fall, the members I represent passed a position statement about this, and I just wanted to share it with you. Additional new housing in Fremont is contributing to the overcrowding of Fremont Unified School District schools. FUTA is pleased to work with the school district on this, and we are pleased to see the work in partnership with the City Council, the district, and the developers of the Warm Springs development to build a new school and provide funding for the feeder junior high and high school. FUTA believes that the developers of other approved housing developments should work with the City Council and the school district to provide neighborhood classrooms. Any future proposed developments should do the same. Fremont is a desirable city for so many because of our schools, which only adds to the overcrowding problem in FUSD. The developers need to be ethically responsible to contributing sufficient funds to prevent an overcrowding problem that we keep seeing in Fremont. Warm Springs, which was this part of our town, they did the right thing, and they helped and worked with us, but we have others that are not. We believe in collaboration between our union and our district, and we need the developers to do that too. And it just unfortunately has not been happening. We need 5 elementary schools, a high school, a junior high. We are hurting and we need your help, and that's why we're here. That hallway is lined up with a busload of Fremont people you can't see, unfortunately, but they're out there. Believe me, they're there. And we're hoping today that you will support Senator Liu's motion and that you will do the right thing for the students across the state, and specifically in Dublin, right across 680 from us, and in Fremont especially. And we hope you'll help us out because we just need help. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Morris? I am going to ask the folks in the back to not clap. It's just going to slow us down a bit, and we appreciate you being here, but please do not clap. Thank you. Mr. Yes, yes. Silent clapping is fine.
Thank you very much. My name is Jim Morris. I'm the superintendent of the Fremont Unified School District, and we tried to have a small number of people coming to speak to you today because we think and we appreciate your thoughtful deliberation and discussion of this item. In addition to Mrs. Westra's opening comments, I just want to point out we really are a model school district. We're a school district in every way that has done everything that this state could ask for a school district. We have incredible teachers. We have incredible staff. We have the highest performing schools in the Bay Area, kind of tied with Dublin. But we really are, in so many ways, a model school district, what you'd want. Our local community has passed local bonds in order to fix and repair our schools that were built in the 50s. We've worked collaboratively with developers in South Fremont and had very good success in one instance. But we really need the help and the leverage of having level 3 fees. It doesn't mean we won't continue to work with developers because we know every one of us lives in a house that was built by a developer. We will continue to have conversation with developers and continue to enter into mitigation agreements. Our local board, it's important for you to know before a level 3 fee is implemented at the local level, it takes an action of the local school board. It has to be posted, there has to be 30-day notice, there has to be a public comment period, and it has to be an open process in collaboration with the community. Our board is probably the most transparent, collaborative board of education you'll find anywhere, and we want to continue to work with folks in our community, but the challenge is I have today, if a first grader moves into the city of Fremont, I don't have a seat for them anywhere. I have 2,400 kindergarten seats for August, and I already have over 2,600 students enrolled. We have a very, very serious problem. Because our schools are so good and folks are moving into the community, we respectfully ask for your help and support. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I have Liz Fisher and Zainab Khan. You could come on up.
Thank you. My name is Liz Fisher. I'm a concerned parent from the Fremont and helped to organize some of this. We just respectfully ask the board to support this motion for all the reasons already stated. We need the leverage to be able to get together on the table with building schools for our students. It's been a long time, and the time is now. Developers are already coming and paying their fees as we speak because of the pending decision here. And we hope that you will support it so that we will have an opportunity to get the funding that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Ms. Khan?
Hello. Hi, good afternoon. My name is Zainab Khan, and I'm a senior at Irvington High School, which is located in Fremont Unified School District, which is a part of Alameda County. My high school is currently home to over 2,600 students, which means that we're severely overcrowded. Our town needs at least one more high school, but my school district doesn't have the funds to build one. And that means that some of my friends, including myself, sometimes I'm on the road for over an hour before I actually get to school. I have to leave home at 7 o'clock in the morning just to get to school by 8:05, which is when our tardy bell rings. And that means that I'm sleep deprived because I'm constantly on the road driving to and from school because school is so far away from where I live. Which is why, well, my school district is a wonderful one. And I understand that a lot of parents do want their students to go to schools like mine. And I do understand that developers want to build homes there. But we don't have the funds to accommodate this many students. Last year, our freshman class was over 800 students, which means that our school day has to break up to accommodate them. So what I'd really ask the board here today would be if you guys would please just follow the law that's been written in cases like this, when the board can't pay for our school facilities, and just charge developers a higher fee so that I can get the education that I deserve, so that my younger brother, who's going to be junior at Irvington High School, gets the education he deserves, and that other students like us get the education that we deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Khan. Next, we have Dr. Yang Xiao and Susie Lara. Susie Lara. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, board members. Thank you for giving me the chance to talk with you about the level 3 fees. My name is Yan Xiao, and I'm on the Fremont Unified School District Board and the clerk of the board. As the representative of the public in my community, I'm glad that I'm joined by a lot of community members, led by our Vice Mayor Lily May and Plan Commissioner Raj Salvan, who will respectfully speak to you later. I will now repeat the serious situation that our superintendent and other speakers before me have already spoken to you. I would just want to share some personal experience. As a board member, I often visit schools. One day, I visited an elementary school called Glencler, and I walked into a small room, barely as big as the space around this table, and it was shared by 4 school psychologists. When I saw that, my tears just rolled down. And we are in desperate need of space, not only for students, but also for the teachers and all the staff. Since this month is the Asian Heritage Month, I'd like to share with you a story in ancient China. One day, a group of monkeys saw the reflection of the moon in the river. They thought the moon was drowning, so they all jumped into the river, tried to save the moon. They tried and tried, but nobody could get the moon out of the water. School facility bond, to me, is like that moon in the river. However, level 3 fee is an immediate and effective way to mitigate our problem. So our need is clear and present, and I urge you to all support the motion made by Senator Carol Liu and support the motion to let us impose level 3 fees to the developers. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Susie Lara. I'm with the Beaumont Unified School District in County of Riverside, and we are a district that's also growing, not as much as they are, but we are anticipating an additional 1,500 homes by the year 2020 or 2021. We've had a 57% growth in 10 years, and so we've passed a bond in our district also. We are not able to get to all those funds at this time because of the bond capacity. So we are in need of 2 new elementary schools very soon. We're just getting ready to start going through the process to do an elementary school. We need another one. And then we only have 1 high school in our district, which has 2,500 students in it. And so we're going to be needing a high school. So I know the list goes on for everybody, and I understand that. So I appreciate this conversation about the level 3 fees. I know it's a very difficult decision to make because it does have such a far-reaching impact on everybody. It has impact on developers, has impact on families if we don't do it, and students. And so I would support the level 3, and because I think that our kids deserve that. And that's what we're here for as school board members and educators. We're here to serve our students. And the best way we can do that is to speak up and let you know how important those kind of issues are to us.
Thank you, Ms. Lara. Next, I have Kathy McDonald and Lily May.
Hi, I'm Kathy McDonald. I'm a resident of Fremont, and I'm a member of the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee for our latest school bond. In 2014, we passed a $650 million school bond to address our failing schools. It was a fix-it bond. And I can tell you that in the last 2 years that I've been on this bond committee, we have had to prioritize new school construction out of that budget to accommodate the accelerated growth we really couldn't accommodate any other way. And because we have had to accommodate these school construction projects, we are now jeopardizing the fix-it projects that we had outlined when we went for this bond. So really, we're not only using our money that we had no other use for this construction or getting the money from the developers. At this point, we are taking money from the residents that we have taxed with the promise that we're going to fix the existing schools. We need help. And at this point, we have 8,000 plus units of homes already approved on our budget or on our planning projects for the next 2 years. So honestly, Mr. Chavez, if we had 5 months of no more approved construction and no development, I think we would really relish the break. And I really urge you all to approve level 3 fees so that we have at least a chance at getting at this construction. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McDonald. Ms. May?
Good afternoon. My name is Lily May, and I really appreciate the opportunity to address the committee this afternoon. I'm a parent of a proud graduate of the school district. I'm a mom of a current student, and I'm a former school board trustee, and I have the honor of currently being the vice mayor. However, I wanted to clarify that I'm speaking today representing myself. There have been a lot of opportunities that I think the school district has been able to work with developers, and in Warm Springs, that is an example. But having seen the changes in the city and having been a parent of a child who's overloaded and having to take a child who's in kindergarten and show up for 2 weeks and not know where you're going to place the child, and our city's a fair size, 92 miles, and trying to figure out as a parent, working parent with a toddler, trying to figure out how am I going to get them to and from 2 different locations, I really understand the needs in terms of the fundings that are critical for the city. I also think that it's important because it's a three-legged approach in terms of a partnership of state fees, local, and developers. And as you've heard already from our superintendent and from our teachers union and parents and volunteers, the community has supported the schools. They have consistently stepped up. They've supported parcel taxes, and they've supported a bond for $650 million. What has happened, though, is that in some ways, because we are performing so well and people are choosing to make this a home, and we're trying to do the right thing as a city, too, to address the housing needs, we can't do that without the supporting infrastructure. And so at this point, I would really request for your support, too, and to support Senator Carol Liu's proposal, and ask that when we ask our children to plan for the future, it really helps if you help us support that and also help them plan for theirs. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
Thank you. Okay, the next two are, let's see, I apologize in advance if I am mispronouncing, Hugh Eng and Raj Salwan.
Okay, hi, good afternoon. My name is Raj Salwan. I'm a current chair of the Fremont Planning Commission. I'm also a former Fremont City Council member. I'm also a product of Fremont Public Schools, and I have 3 kids in our public schools now. I'm here to urge you to support Senator Carol Liu's motion to increase level 3 fees. Fremont has been a model city. We have done our job. We have dedicated 4 TOD areas, one of which is near a new BART station. We're building over 4,000 units just in Warm Springs alone. We are also building another 2,500 units near the downtown. We have dedicated our affordable housing boomerang funds, 20%. We were the first city to do that. We're continuing to invest in affordable housing in the Warm Springs district with a large amount of extremely low units coming online. And so we only have 1 tool left to build our schools. The schools that we have now are the same schools that I went to 30 years ago. And I think it's time that our school get modernized and become part of the 21st century. We like to say that we are part of Silicon Valley, but how can we do that when our schools reflect the 1950s? So I kindly and humbly request all of you to please consider supporting level 3 fees. I understand your question, Assemblymember Chavez. But hopefully we can revisit that at a future time. If we're flush with cash, maybe we can relook at it at a future date. Thank you very much and appreciate you taking this time.
Thank you.
My name is Hugh Eng. I'm a regular parent from Fremont. I'm not a elected official in any way. I do not work for the school district. I had a very clear and strong track record of sometimes agreeing with the the Fremont Unified School District Board of Education. Other times, I actually disagree. But on this issue of level 3 fees, the need is so clear that I actually have not heard from very many people to oppose. I believe the overwhelming sentiments of the Fremont public is wanting to see a higher developer fee. Our level 2 developer fee at this time is only something like $8.16. And it is not, as some other speakers have told you, it does not even met half of the cost to our school district. I want to give you a snapshot, really fast snapshot. There will be a Fremont school board meeting tomorrow night. On the agenda, there will be 9 portable classrooms being added to one of our elementary schools all over. On the agenda, there will be 3 portables adding to one of our junior highs, Thornton Junior High, which already has 20 portables. There is a third item, which is adding 6 portables to American High School, which already has 24 portables. And the really, really heartbreaking part is, I expect to be at the board meeting tomorrow and ask the school board, please build 10 portables at American. I believe I was here in April. I talked to everyone a little bit about the needs at our school. Our schools are basically falling apart. Even when we add the classrooms, all the core facilities, sports, music, performing arts, everything else, bathrooms, everything else, it's not enough. There is an urgent need. Many the people here today, not because we have something against developers, or we have something that we're going to do anything unreasonable. If there's some new money in November, at that time, I firmly believe that the school district would review and do the right thing. But Fremont is really, really hurting. The kids are hurting. You heard from the leader of our teacher union. The teachers are not having fun. The parents are really concerned because we see that overcrowding. You are hearing from a student even. Please support Senator Liu's motion.
Thank you, Mr.
We are asking because we need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Patty Herrera?
Good afternoon. I'm Patty Herrera. I represent Riverside County Schools. We have 23 school districts in Riverside County. We educate collectively 425,000 students every day. In Riverside County, our situation is I wouldn't call it unique, but it's definitely urgent. Our assessed valuation per pupil across our county is well below the statewide average, which tells us that in our county we don't have the financial wherewithal to address our housing needs, our growth in Riverside. We are one of 3 counties that the Department of Finance has noted will grow in the coming decade, and actually over the next 50 years, and we're feeling that growth now. We appreciate, Senator Liu, your leadership in making your motion to trigger level 3 fees. I can't tell you, Mr. Chavez, how many of our districts in Riverside County would use that authority to assess level 3 if you provide it to them, but I can assure you that if you don't provide them the option, that they can't, and they need your assistance. So we support the trigger of level 3, and we hope that you will do what's right for kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Herrera. Next, I have David Walrath and Richard Lyon. And the last card I have is for Laura Preston, and then if there's anyone else, I see at least one more coming.
Madam Chair, members, Dave Walrath, representing the Coalition for Adequate School Housing. Thank you for this opportunity. In response to Mr. Nazarian's question, there are approximately 960 school districts in the state of California. We do not know how many have level 2 authorization because only those with level 2 could go to level 3. In Kern County, approximately 25% have level 2. If you take that extension, if that is reflective of the state, then you're talking about potentially up to 240 school districts. Whether they all would trigger or not, I do not know. But most of them, when they did their needs analysis and their fee surveys, they included both level 2 and level 3 authorization in that survey. Consequently, they can automatically go without any subsequent board action, if they choose to go down to the permitting agency and say our fees are now doubled. So a new homeowner who's building their own home just walked out of the plan department with their plans, only building their own home, will now have twice the fee. They may not have figured that into their cost. Because when you go to a level 3, you cannot pick and choose who pays. It could be the person who's building 3 or 4 homes a year, who has to be building those homes in order to have enough money and have enough people employed to meet his costs, because they don't have enough money in the bank to carry themselves like a large corporation might be able to carry themselves if they chose not to build in a level 3 environment. So Coalition for Adequate School Housing last Wednesday testified before the 3 committees, education committees, regarding the state school bond. Our testimony was the state school bond provides equity. It provides equity of access for the goal of ensuring that every student in the state and every teacher in the state can have a quality classroom. We will be urging you to not adopt Senator Liu's motion because it does not meet the equity test. While it does have some effects, and you've heard testimony from some school districts, it does not help school districts with growth but not development. And those are sometimes districts in the Central Valley with high numbers of low-income students. It does not help modernization districts who have primarily modernization, because level 3 cannot be used for modernization, only for new construction, only on new development. And when I say development, we won't get into the economic analysis of how much of this cost we passed on to the home buyer versus the home builder. It does not help those districts who are small and low wealth, who need a robust financial hardship program. The state bond would do that. We believe the state bond is on the ballot. The voters will have a chance to vote on it in 5 months. We believe it is a better way of addressing these equity issues. We do not know what will happen if the motion passes. None of us do. So the question is, with the bond on the ballot, why take a great leap into the unknown? We ask you to vote no or not vote at all. Thank you.
Good afternoon, members. Richard Lyon on behalf of the California Building Industry Association. We believe that there are viable solutions here short of the board taking the extreme measure of imposing new taxes on housing. Triggering 100% financing on new home buyers, as Mr. Walrath said, with a bond pending in November before California voters, will do very little to advance the cause of facilities, and it will likely send a chilling message to the housing and the employment markets throughout the state at a time when we all understand and recognize that we have a serious housing supply and affordability crisis. We agree with Mr. Walrath that the better solution here is for the board to educate itself, to understand what its options are, but to allow the public to voice its opinion on the program. If the bond passes, then this question is moot. If the bond fails, then the board should be prepared to take appropriate action immediately. But we think any action on level 3 today would be premature. I would like to address issues that are in the board report that go directly to the triggering issues that the staff has talked about. And I begin by citing you to the 2002 Attorney General opinion that you have in your packet. The issue there was not whether the amount of grant requests exceed the available funds. The issue was whether or not the board had exhausted, and exhausted is the word, completely exhausted, new construction dollars and is no longer approving apportionments. And importantly, the Attorney General's opinion is not the only legal opinion on this matter. In 2001, the Legislative Council also opined. It's the opinion right here. For the record, it is opinion 12361 of June 27 of 2001. And I'd like to read you the conclusion in this opinion, and it tracks along with what the Attorney General said. If state funds are available in the School Facilities Fund for apportionment to school districts, and the SAB continues to approve apportionments, even though the total amount in that fund is less than the total amount of applications that could have been or could be approved for funding, then level 3 doesn't trigger. So it's not about the amount of demand on the system versus money in the account. It's whether the funds that are new construction funds have been exhausted. The staff report concludes that there's a lack of funds for new construction. However, it's important to understand that the same report also acknowledges that seismic funds are new construction funds and that seismic funds remain. So there's an internal conflict here. It both can't be right. We can't be, on one hand, out of new construction funds and at the same time have an account balance of funds that are acknowledged to be new construction. The way that the the way that the staff report attempts to reconcile this is to say that the board has decided to place the monies into the Article 8 Facility Hardship Seismic account. And by doing that, the monies, according to this reasoning, are no longer counted as available under Article 5 for new construction purposes. I think it really makes no difference what accounting measures are used here. It doesn't change the fact that the funds were approved by voters in 2006 as new construction. And until either the legislature by a 2/3 vote or the voters themselves agree to repurpose those funds, they remain new construction funds. To the second part, does the board continue to approve apportionments? And under Article 5, and the staff report says no. The report does acknowledge that apportionments continue to be made to seismic, but it says that those are under Article 8 and not under Article 5. Article 5 is the organic statute that lays out new construction and the criteria for new construction. And I've got a copy of the article right here. And in Section A, it basically says that a district has to be eligible and it submits an application. But the important part here is in subsection B. And it says this, and this is new construction. And this is in Article 5. The application shall include but shall not be limited to the school district's determination of the amount of state funding that the district is otherwise eligible for relating to, and these are the eligible activities under Article 5 that the district is eligible for new construction, relating to site acquisition, site development, new construction, and hardship funding pursuant to Article 8. Article 8 is a lesser included article within the broader Article 5. Article 5 is the new construction pot. Seismic funds are new construction until they have been repurposed by either the voters or the legislature. They continue to be new construction funds. And it makes no difference that the accounting was in Article 8 and not in Article 5, because by this code, seismic funds are a lesser included activity under new construction. They are, in fact, new construction funds. They can be purposed for new construction. The board continues to approve apportionments of seismic funds, which are identified as new construction funds. So for those reasons, members, we believe that the two conditions, being out of new construction dollars and no longer approving apportionments under Article 5, have not occurred, and that it would be inappropriate, it would be unwise, it would be arbitrary for this board to pull the level 3 trigger. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lyon. Next, I have Laura Preston and Donald Hofer.
Hi, I'm Laura Preston with the Association of California School Administrators. Mr. Lyon and I kind of winked at each other on our way because we're a couple of the people in the room who were here back in the 1980s when we created the school facility program in its inception. I had the privilege of working for Senator Leroy Green, who is the father of the school facilities program. And when we created the program, it was supposed to be a third, a third, a third. A third builders, a third the state, a third school districts. And at that time, we were passing bonds consistently. And also at that time, we had the ability, and Mr. Lyon and I would probably argue back and forth, but we had the ability to go to our cities and counties and leverage additional fees, especially at that time we were growing rapidly throughout the state. So developers were paying more than the statutory amount of fees in some parts of the state. I assure you back then, and I can't assure you now, I don't know, but I assure you back then, housing did not slow down. Housing prices don't go skyrocketing because the houses are going to sell for what they sell. It becomes a profit margin for the developers, and I understand that, and I know that that can be a problem, but the reality is that our schools, our good schools, are selling points for homes, and our schools wouldn't be needed if there weren't the homes being built to accommodate the students that are coming out of them. So I wanted to provide that kind of backdrop because when we moved forward, when SB 50 was passed and we changed the whole dynamic of the developer fees, it has created problems in pockets of the state. Now, I have talked to many of my members. Some members are willing to, they're agreeing that they could really use the level 3 developer fees. And we have some who are like, no, even though we know we could probably use the funds, we know the developers will leave and we don't want them to leave. So what this does is it allows for the conversation, it but it brings the parties together to figure out how you're going to pay for these schools, especially in light of the state not providing their 1/3 part. And they haven't for a long time, all of you know. And we need those resources for those districts that will work with their developers to make this happen. Thank you.
My name is Don Hofer. I'm the chairman for the California Building Industry Association. I'm also vice president for Shea Homes in Northern California. And I participate as vice chair on the Facilities Oversight and Advisory Committee for the school district in which I live. So I have an interesting perspective with regards to a lot of this. I'd like to first point out that as a building industry, we support schools. We believe in a lot of what the previous speaker just spoke to about the importance of schools in our communities. However, pulling the level 3 trigger today doesn't solve what you're hearing a cry for today. The issue is funding. And as an association, the California Building Industry Association is focused on the $9 billion bond that is on the ballot for November. And that bond is an effort that has gone on, for many of you know, for nearly 4 years. Had that bond passed or been allowed to move forward when it was originally calendared, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. The issue is funding generally. And generally the issue today is whether or not, if you pull the trigger for level 3 fees, if it does anything. I can tell you that a lot of what people have talked about is correct. That if you pull the trigger today for level 3 fees, several things will play out throughout the state. The first is that in growth districts like Dublin and Fremont and others, you'll see developers come out and pay fees in advance. We're talking about a 5-month window from when the fee trigger would be pulled and the bond would be decided. So for the next couple of months, you'll see developers possibly working on permits that they've pulled in advance and prepaid. Once you get to maybe September or October, if they haven't prepaid, they're going to wait, right? They're going to wait to pull their permits until they know if the fees are going to be lower. And we're not talking about small dollars here. Okay, we're talking about fees that will double in Dublin, or I'm sorry, in some parts, I think Fremont is talking about roughly a $10 square foot difference between level 2 and level 3. That's considerable financial impact. So this is the dynamic that private business will play out in these districts. So in reality, what happens within Dublin and Fremont and others like them is that you'll see no revenue difference. Okay. In fact, for a short period of time, you'll see a peak because more revenue will come in for a short period of time as developers play out the need for permits short time. You'll see a trough as you get closer to the November election, and then by year end, you'll see no discernible difference at all in revenue within that district. You may see a few builders that aren't sophisticated enough or don't know about this, local homeowners, local folks who actually go in and pay that level 3 fee unhappily, but it won't be much. On the other side of the equation, though, you all have heard about the housing crisis we're facing in so many jurisdictions throughout the state. You'll see generally the pipeline for new projects stop in areas where the financial viability of development is questionable. It just will. It's the way business works in this state. When it comes to additional development or additional investment into development, if all of a sudden on a 100-unit project, my cost just went up by $2 or $20 million, depending, whatever the economics are, it could be the difference between a project moving forward or not. And so generally a decision today to go through level 3 would have more negative impact than positive, in that it would stop development in some parts of the state, which is badly needed today to deal with the housing affordability crisis that we know exists. So, that's kind of high level. Hopefully the knowledge that I can, impart here today about the way it works within a builder like Shea is helpful. I would urge you to wait until November election is through. And again, like Richard Lyon and others said here today, if the bond is not successful in November, then by all means, this is a valid discussion to be having. And it has a lot of important today aspects, and I'm happy to be here today to have the discussion. But really, at the end of the day, level 3 won't achieve what I think people are asking for it to achieve in reality. So thank you.
Mr. Hakeem?
Respected board members, my name is Samir Hakeem. I'm a trustee with the Dublin Unified School Board. One fact which has not been brought up is about our students. We are not thinking about our students when we are talking about not leveling the level 3 fees. I would say, as a trustee, I am responsible to ensure quality education for all our students. With the growth we face in our district, we cannot provide this quality education without building more schools. We feel we cannot build these schools without level 3 fees. Please note that level 3 fees do not cover the entire cost of our construction. As a trustee, we want to do the right decision for our kids, giving districts local control to determine triggering level 3 fees is the right thing to do. This will bring the developers and the districts together, provide us a leverage to think what is right for our school district. As a trustee, I would say profit margin should not be more important than educating our kids. The impact is now, so please pass the motion said by Senator Liu. Thank you very much.
Is there any other public comment to come before the board? Okay, I'll open it back up to board members. We have a motion by Senator Liu on the floor. Mr. Schweitzer.
Thank you. Can I just want to throw a question out to my colleagues here, and just so I think there's certainly broad consensus here at the dais that there's tremendous need for facilities, school facilities statewide. And while this may address some of that need, how does it sort of fit into long-term, addressing all of the need, particularly given that we know that, the need is shifting from historically it's been new construction. It's shifting now to modernization statewide. This doesn't really address that. We've got a bond on the November ballot. How does it impact the bond? We're hearing from some folks that, builders are going to stop building. Is it going to generate any money? And then when the bond passes, there's uncertainty as to district by district how those needs analysis will be done, and since there's no triggering off, so how does that get addressed? So I think I've got a lot of questions still. I'm wondering what my colleagues can help here.
I don't know that I can answer all of the questions of my colleague. I can tell you why I'm going to vote for the motion today as one step forward that we can take right now. And that is that we are talking about huge need, and we're talking about many different kinds of districts, so it's not one size fits all. Districts that look at their own situation and conclude that no one's going to build, or that it doesn't make any difference, or whatever, won't enact the fees. Districts that may need the fees and believe that they will still have developers building, I think would go ahead and use it. So for me, it's allowing immediate steps taken by local people to address their local conditions. And I have to say, we've heard the argument that comes down at the end seems to be developers won't do anything unless they have all the leverage and don't have to do very many fees. I think that's why some of these people were told before they came here that we'd never vote for the fees. We heard those, I come from local government, we heard some of those same things about inclusionary zoning and green building and many things that, in fact, after we enacted them, developers stepped up to the plate and did it. And I'm also going to say that I think it's cynical for people to say developers just won't build unless they can maximize every dime of profit. And I have found, to be very frank, that often the associations in Sacramento don't speak for everyone in their class of people, whether that is union leaders for union members, the Medical Association for doctors, developers for developers, police chiefs for police chiefs. We could go down. We all know communities are different. And in fact, if you have a desirable community and you have zoning laws, developers are often vying to do that building. And in communities like the ones we heard from today, that appears to be the case. And if that is the case and they move forward and we pass a bond, there will probably be many districts that aren't in that enviable condition who will step up to use the money. So I think that there's a reason we have level fees written into the law. And the reason is that at some point we would need them. And according to the staff report, we're eligible for them now, we need them now, and I think we should move forward today.
Can I make a comment then?
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Before I address all my colleagues, I first want to address all the parents. First of all, thank you for coming here. I think it's extremely important that your voice is heard, and I'm glad we took the time by the chairman to allow you to all speak. and especially the staff members and city council members come forward. And for the one gentleman made the comment, you know, I sit on a lot of education committees, and when I ran for office in 2012, it was all about education. It was for the kids and the students. And that comes from nearly 40 years have been a school site parent, have been a PTA president, have been a coach at a high school, having been a school board member, have been a director of a high school, and also city council member for 2 terms. So I didn't just fall off the truck yesterday. I've been involved in this for some time. And I bring that to this decision. The programs do cost in California. When you do inclusionary housing, when you do green, when you do infill, when you do affordable, I was in a coastal community in Oceanside when we were dealing with all the issues of the coastal zones. You're right. People will develop it. But the price has been, is the cost of a house. The largest, when I go into Silicon Valley, when I meet with the business development centers there and I talk to students at the universities, the biggest thing they hit with is affordable housing. And that is because we are not able to develop it, because we have all these restrictions on heights and zones and setbacks and all these other things that people that put programs in, they'll develop it, but it's going to take your cost up. My daughter sold her condo in Oceanside and bought a house on 5 acres of land in Virginia because of the zoning and good idea of programs. Imagine that. A 2-bedroom condo in Oceanside buys you a 5-bedroom house, in a 5-acre lot in Virginia. So there's a cost to these. You know, if the bond measure wasn't coming forward, I'd vote for this in a heartbeat because we need it. But having been involved with developers and having been in local government and seeing this, it's going to happen exactly like that. The plans that have already been pulled, that have paid fees, they'll go forward, and then it's going to be all stopped to see what happens. And so people in your neighborhoods are going to be out of work, and you're not going to see things go forward. And then house prices are going to go up because it's a supply and demand issue. So when your children graduate school, they're going to try to figure out where they're going to live. That's why the houses are so big. So that's why I'm a big supporter of the bond issue. You know, and the other thing I like to just say also, because I watched 3 or 4 city council members come forward and say, you know, they're in this, and even a planning commissioner. You know, a general plan has mandatory elements, and one of them is actually called the land use. And in the land use, it actually discussed education being set aside as part of the whole general plan. You know, in our cities, we would always consider, when I was in the city council, we would always consider, is this development going to come in here? How's it going to impact the schools? And cities can go ahead and put all types of fees on people to build things. And we often did, to take care of our schools. So if your city council members are sitting there saying, we're coming to the state, really it's a local problem. You need to look at your general plan, figure out your roads and all the other things to say, do we really have smart growth going on here, or is it just sprawl being running everywhere? You know, there is to the issue that came here, what is the systemic issue? I think the systemic issue is we got to pass this bond, and we need to ask local cities and counties to look at what they're doing and seeing how it's being impacted to do it. It's if this problem solved it, I would vote for it in a heartbeat, because as I outlined earlier, I've been involved in education for a number of years, but it doesn't solve it. That's all it's going to do is cause more problems for jobs, price of houses, and it's going to divide your community, and you probably don't need to do this. So I won't be supporting this today.
Thank you, Mr. Travis. Mr. Diaz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So from our perspective, we've heard a lot about the construction industry, and I just wanted to just kind of share some thoughts of what my thinking is around this item. I see there's a lot of areas of agreement in the people that have come forward. I do see that everyone's involved in shaping what their communities look like, what developments in those areas are like. and everyone agrees that the education community, schools, and developers are partners in this. There's also an agreement on passing a bond in November. What we're talking about here in the area of this agreement is a temporary issue that relates to a community being able to negotiate together on what that development looks like in between a possible bond and this happening during this time. So if you look at development in certain areas, like, as was mentioned by Assemblymember Chavez, you know, I have family in the Bay Area and know full well the extreme situation there with regards to housing and the expensive, lack of affordability and how it's driving people away from those areas. But it also means that there is an extreme need to look at how to build more affordable housing. In that area, there's commonality. I think the development community is looking at ways to explore that. I mean, the legislature is looking at ways to look at affordable housing. The governor has a proposal, and we're, of course, engaging in that. But this entire conversation does not end here. It actually drives more people to sit down across the table from each other and be able to negotiate exactly what fees they can accomplish and to allow for it temporarily, hopefully, when this bond passes. I think it's important to approve the motion. I think it's temporary. I think that with regards to the sort of awareness of the construction industry, our members are also seeing that too, and our members would like to have their kids go to school and then not have to travel an hour away to get their kids, and then have to travel another hour to get to work. So I think for those reasons, I would be supporting this motion.
Ms. Bonilla.
Thank you very much, and I do agree with the comments that have been made by Senator Hancock. Hit on a lot of the notes I had written down, and what we've been trying to achieve, I think, and what the original intent here was balance. And if you look at the chart on page 158, you can see that we're greatly out of balance. And it's interesting that, and the reason I'm going to be supporting the action today is that if we don't, we're really restraining local governance. And at the same time that we would be restraining local governance, they are carrying the largest burden if you look at that chart. So they have been doing more than their part consistently, and this is all taxpayer money. These are the taxpayers doing this for their own, communities. But the action, as I see it today, is an action that allows local governance to function where it needs to function, and that the state is removing itself with this action out of the way of what is a very varied and needs that aren't uniform, that are different from place to place. So I do come from local government myself, city council, board of supervisors. I know if the school board, I wasn't on a school board, but if I was in those seats, this is the action that I would want to have taken, and I think it's the action my constituency supports.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other comments from board members? Okay, I too will be supporting the motion today. I agree with the comments about returning the decision to local districts. This is not, we are not taking an action to impose a fee statewide. We're taking an action to allow others to consider what's appropriate for their district, and that is for that reason I will support the motion. The other point I wanted to make was on some of the questions that have been made about how we're accounting for the funds and the analysis that's been provided by the staff. I think there are reasonable people can disagree on what the statute says or what it means, and there are different interpretations, and we will likely see folks raise issues on that. However, what we have before us is an analysis that says we are not apportioning funds under Article 5, and so again, for that reason also, I will be supporting the motion. So we have a motion by Senator Liu. I don't think we have a second yet. Seconded by Senator Hancock. I'll call one last time if there's any other public comment, and if not, I'll ask Ms. Jones to call the roll. Okay, go ahead.
Senator Hancock?
Aye.
Senator Liu?
Aye.
Senator Huff? Assemblymember Nazarian? Assemblymember Bonilla?
Aye.
Assemblymember Chavez?
No.
Nick Schweizer? Cesar Diaz?
Aye.
Jeffrey McGuire?
Aye.
Irena Ortega?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again for traveling to be here today. Before we move on to item number 8, I would like to ask Ms. Jones to return to the items where we had some absent members.
Yes, thank you. Senator Hancock, how do you vote on the appeal from Montague?
Aye.
Thank you. And also Assemblymember Nazarian? Okay, couple more. Consent calendar? Yes, thank you. Aye. And?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I think that closes.
Oh, and the minutes, thank
Sure.
you.
The minutes are approved unanimously. We have everyone
Yes,
here.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you so
minutes are
much.
approved unanimously. Okay, we will move on to item number 8. This is not an action item at this time, so we will hear the staff presentation, and we do have some public speakers on this item as well. Yeah, let's wait a couple of minutes. If we can have everyone who is not staying here for item 8 to please exit expeditiously. Okay, I think you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, Barbara Kampminer with the Office of Public School Construction, and today I'd like to present the staff report on a proposal that was brought forth by stakeholders and a board member at the last meeting, and the board direction was for staff to take a look at it and to provide a summary and to see if there were any issues or challenges with potentially adopting this proposal. So the proposal in its entirety is included in your item, but we have also provided a brief overview of what our understanding of the program is, and we do believe that this is a new program that would provide loan funds to school districts under the under the hardship section of the regulations by adding some definitions to what can be considered a hardship and outlining some points at which a school district would qualify for these hardship funds. And it would be based on the premise that a school district could then receive a loan for either the district's matching share or for the state apportionment that may not be available. So we did take a look at that, and in looking at it, we believe that there are some statutory considerations that would need to be addressed prior to the board adopting the regulations. And at a high level, we've outlined on, there's a table in the chart there on page 3 of the item, stamp page 173, that has 4 key areas that we feel would need to be addressed through statute or addressed through modifications of the regulations in order to move forward. And the first that we noted is that there is a request to use funds from an undefined funding source to provide the loans. There is a reference in here to using the pooled money investment account funding or requesting a general fund or budget act appropriation for the loans. In further conversations, we have heard that this is potentially to be based off of funding from a future bond if a bond is passed. If that's the case, the regulations would need some additional wording changes. If that's not the intent, then there would need to be some statutory basis to provide a funding source to do this. The second piece that would be a bit of a challenge in implementing this is the actual concept of loans within the school facility program. Right now in the program, there are 2 areas that do allow for loans, or the term lease is used in one of the areas, and that's in the charter program and the career technical education facilities program. The statute does not provide any reference to the board's ability to make loans. And actually, back when the board was hearing options for streamlining the seismic mitigation program, this topic came up as a potential solution for districts that were facing challenges in getting their local match for seismic funding. And at the time, we did consult with council, and it was determined that because there is no specific inclusion of loans in the school facility program, that it's not permitted without a change to statute. So it's mentioned specifically for some programs and omitted for others. So that would need to be addressed statutorily in order for the concept of the regulations to move forward. And then two other things to note, that it does change the way that state funds are provided for the school district matching share. So there may need to be some changes to the regulations if it is not the intent to broaden the financial hardship program past the decisions that have currently been made by the board and regulations, or limited by statute. So there may need to be some statutory direction there, or potentially some clarifying language in the regulations. And then finally, the and how this interacts with our past item may need to be discussed. But this states a new time point at which level 3 could be triggered. But since the board has just taken action, that's maybe less of an issue for the regulations now. But had the board not taken action, then that would have, having it included in these regulations would have potentially conflicted with the existing statute for triggering level 3. So at a high level, that's what we discovered on the regulations. We'd be happy to answer more specific questions, but it is here as an information item for the board's information.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments before we take public comment on this item? Okay, let's go ahead and start with, we have Dr. Hankey and Samir Hakim, Mr. Hakim again. And I'm going to ask the Dublin folks to be a little brief on this one, since we have heard certainly about the circumstances in Dublin. Yes.
Yes, I will. Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. I appreciate, first of all, I want to say appreciate the opportunity, and I thank you for taking the action that you just did on the developer fees. We are asking that this regulation, which would establish a new construction loan program, be kept alive as we continue to work through the issue of finding a funding source for those dollars. We also would ask that this item be classified as an emergency so that the timing of the funding could be made available to the school district much more rapidly. The issue that we have in Dublin, beyond the issue of the overcrowding, is one where cash flow determines whether or not we can actually build the schools that we need. Cash flow is a critical element. You will hear from our 4 trustees in just a few minutes about the conditions in Dublin, what our local efforts have been, as well as the need that we specifically have and the solution that we are proposing. We have a wonderful school district in Dublin. We have made significant progress over the last 10 years. I have been pleased to be the superintendent for that time, and it's been absolutely amazing. Our school district is among the top in the Bay Area, and we're very, very proud of that. I share that with you because the progress that we are making and continue to make with our students each and every day is threatened by the challenge that we have in our ability to house our students now and in the future. You're going to hear some very much amazing numbers when we talk about the growth that we have had and the growth that we will experience. We see this as an opportunity for the board to preserve the option to move forward with this program so that we can close that gap on the cash flow issue and make sure that our schools are built in time to face the wave of growth that we are experiencing. So once again, we are requesting that you keep this alive as an action item in the future, either at the June 22nd meeting or at a future time when the actual authorization is made available to you. And I thank you for that.
Sincere thank you for approving the developer fees. I bring to attention the uniqueness of Dublin. Dublin is amongst the top 2 growing cities in California. We have doubled our student population in the past 10 years. And that is like 10,000 where we are, and we expect to double, add 50% more in the next 7 years. It's a huge number to manage, and for that we need to build more schools. And to build more, we basically need 3 more elementary schools. K through 8 is what we are planning, and we are planning to build a new high school, a new comprehensive high school. That requires us to keep us funded. that requires us some cash flow, and that's what we are trying to bring forward. We have done everything at our end to add portables. We have changed boundaries, and we have done program changes to manage this growth. But we cannot accommodate this additional students without impacting the quality of education. We have capped enrollment this year for our middle school, and we have reached our maximum about 2,500 students in our single high school, and we expect to grow by 2,000 in the next 7 years. That would be the single largest high school, and we do not want to do that. We need your help with this cash flow issue. We definitely think it will allow us to do the necessary things now, because money keeps us floating, and build better things. Thank you very much for it.
Thank you. Dan Cunningham and Megan Rouse.
Good afternoon again. I'll keep this as brief as possible. I don't want to repeat what's already been said, so I'll look through my notes to make sure I don't. I think the point we want to make is our community's done everything right. In the last 10 years, our community's approved 2 bond measures, and we're getting ready to do a third, although there's a lot of opposition, which would be over $500 million in debt our community has taken on. And so we've done what we need to do, and this is a cash flow problem that we need to solve. Our problem is our community is pushing back, and they are angry that the state and the developers aren't holding up their end of the bargain. They see developers getting away with paying less than their fair share. And when we first started this whole process back in January, we heard there were solutions from the developers, and they have not come up with a single solution for us yet. They've told us what they can't do and what we won't do. In the meantime, they haven't helped with our bond. They're quietly sitting on the sidelines in hope that it doesn't pass and the fees go down to level 1. We have developers running into our office now trying to get their fees paid today, so they don't have to pay the higher fees that are going to come. And so they aren't out to help. And they haven't given us any suggestions on how to support us or help us. Words are great. We need actions. And this is really taken away from our core business, which is educating our students. And we need to find a solution. We think this is a solution to help the funding issue in the short term for the stuff that we've already paid for and that we've used to really take away from the buildings that exist that need repair. And we need our schools to be in repair so our students have, adequate housing. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Megan Rouse, Vice President of Dublin School Board. I'm here to speak in support of our proposed regulation and making it an action item in June. As I mentioned earlier, Level 3, and I'm extremely grateful for your support in Level 3. Level 3 and our proposed regulation are complementary. Level 3 addresses the houses that they will build tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. And this proposed regulation addresses the homes that were built over the last several years, the schools that we have already built, the schools that we have already filled with children, the schools for which we have submitted for an appropriation but are still waiting for funds to be available. And so we need that state portion that we've been waiting for since 2014. And other districts are in this same spot, which having the cash flow issues and waiting for the approved projects for the students that we are already providing a world-class education to. And so we can't go back in time. But this proposed regulation would allow us to move forward by providing the relief that we need to close that gap. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rouse. Amy Miller. And the last 2 are Nanette Farag and Jensen Jennings.
Hi again. Thank you for the action that you just took. I feel like we're sort of part of a historical moment today, and it's much appreciated. Like all of you, those of us from Dublin that have spoken sit at a dais also, and we hear a lot of concerns. And one of the things that we really want to do is be able to serve the people in our community. So one of the things we really like also when people come to our dais with concerns is sometimes when they have really great reasonable solutions. When we first initiated this conversation back in January, and we came to you and brought up level 3, and we're pretty much told that was the third rail. You shouldn't be saying that out loud. And it was kind of this whole conversation about, well, then what can we do? And at that time, we did have some input from builders, and Assemblymember Bonilla was quite helpful. And we had a lot of meetings, and we said, well, what's an alternative? What can we do to help ourselves? And at that time, we started to write the language for this proposal. And I know that we're not having an action item for it tonight, but the reason that we really want to talk about it is we want an action item in June, because we believe by June we will get somewhere with this. Senator Glazer has been very proactive in helping us, and you're going to hear from one of his staff members, and Assemblymember Baker is on board with us. I know Senator Hancock's staff has been in the office with us when we've had these conversations. We've even talked with Mr. Wykowski, and we've just had a lot of conversations around this proposal, and we think it's a really reasonable solution, and we really want to talk about it as an action item in June. And I just want to say that we really appreciate you taking this seriously, and we appreciate what you've done today, and we look forward to seeing all of you again. Thank you.
Mr. Jennings.
Jensen James here on behalf of Senator Stephen Glazer. Thank you for his time. We just want to be here as part and support our Dublin School District. Specifically, we just wanted to strongly support the request to get this item on the allocation board agenda for the next in June on June 22nd. So we would really appreciate that, and we just wanted to support them. So we're here as a cheerleader facility, if you will. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Right. Go ahead, Mr. Lyon. I also had Nanette Farag, but I don't think she has come up, so she was representing Assemblymember Baker. Mr. Lyon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We would like to kind of incorporate by reference what Dr. Henke had to say. I think the neglect of the state of California from participating as a funding partner has caused ruptures to this program that will probably be profound and exist for quite some time. This is a small solution that would help growing districts. We think it's a good idea. We would encourage the board to keep this issue alive and allow a number of us to try to work this forward. Thank you very much.
So I do just want to make a couple comments about this. So this is not an action item, and we're not proposing to kill it or keep it alive. It's not an action item because we don't have any statutory authority to adopt a regulation to implement this program, nor is there an appropriation for funds to use as the loan or the cash flow. I think what I would commit to is at such time that authority exists, whether that be through the budget process or some other statutory authority through just as part of a bill that is passed and signed, we would bring it back to adopt the regulation. There would be no reason at that point to delay implementing something that had clearly been agreed to and approved in statute. So I don't want, whether it's on the agenda again in June, I'm happy to have an update. But if nothing has happened in June, it wouldn't make much sense to talk about it again and have all you folks come. The budget will not be decided by then, or it may or may not be by then. So again, the issue is we are not killing it or keeping it alive today. It is something we don't have statutory authority to act on. So I just wanted to make that clear. Ms. Bonilla.
Yes, and thank you for that. Just for clarification, so those who are working on it know how to get there, because I think that's helpful. What you're really looking for based on the staff report is clarification on the intention that this would be contingent upon the bond passing, because the first thing was, where's the money going to come from, right?
If that's the intent, yes. But we didn't see language there that would.
Right, so that could be done in the language of the regulation, because I want to clarify what needs to be refined in the regulation and what needs to be done in statute, okay? So if that's refined in the regulation, that would be good. Then what needs to be done in statute, perhaps in a trailer bill of the budget, would be the actual loan authorization for this emergency program, or I don't know, tell me exactly what would need to be in the trailer bill.
I'm not sure what the language should look like, but right now there is no reference or no authority for the board to make loans except in those specific circumstances in charter and CTE. And the charter school facilities
and the
program.
charter school facilities program. So there would need to be an authorization put into probably the trailer bill language that would, what would we call this? I just want to know from like a loan for emergency hardship.
And I think that's up to what the intent of the statute would be. We would be happy to implement whatever the statute leads to.
And then you made it clear that now we're going back to just the regulation, cleaning up the language here. If you remove the level 3 reference, just delete it, right, out of the regulation.
Right now, the regulation language for level 3 doesn't, it actually appears to conflict with statute.
Right,
So
that would just
removing
be
that would
deleted.
resolve the conflict.
And then you wanted clarity on retaining, that there's not any intention to change the matching, the matching program as in, now is that something that would have to be in statute or just a cleanup of the actual regulation language?
The way we read the regulations right now appears to change the match requirement from districts. So if it is the intent to change the match requirement, that would require statute. If it's not the intent, then the regulation language would need to be adjusted accordingly.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that, the work was being done in the correct areas. So I think, given the intent I've expressed, and I may be different, other people may have other intent, but the main thing that needs to go into statute then is the actual authorization to make this kind of loan.
Correct. Right. Correct. And I think I would add, I think if that existed in statute, there would be more discretion for the regulation to be developed in a way that implements that statute. It just can't work the other direction.
Right.
So,
we have the cart before the horse, and essentially at this point. Yes. So we need the authorization first. That's very helpful. And I think that just for clarification, because some people, you might ask, why would you need to do this? And it really is about the cash flow issue that this particular district and others who fit in this narrow max out of bond authority situation may find themselves in. The bond hopefully will pass in November. We'll begin the process, but they could wait quite a long time under the normal conditions to receive some money that they actually need quite urgently. So the real purpose of pursuing this would be to give them relief from their very serious cash flow situation. Is that, I just want to make sure that everyone on the board kind of understands the intention here. But I think we all understand there isn't extra money lying around, and that's why it would have to be contingent upon the passage of the bond, but it would speed up the cash flow issue to this, to the districts that would fall into the very narrowly defined emergency criteria. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, Susan, but the bond on the ballot doesn't authorize, I don't think there's any language in the bond that says anything about a loan program, is there? I mean, are you trying to tie the bond amount to a loan program?
I think it would be the repayment of the loan would come from the bond. So the state knows the bond is good money. So the loan, they know they're not really going to ever be out. If the bond passes, the state's going to get the money back. It just lets the district have the cash sooner, and the state knows the bond is good to pay the state back.
Is that authorized by the bond, the way the bond is written? I mean, or am I missing this?
Well, I don't.
Yeah, Ms. Miller, I'm going to let you come up. I do want to say something quickly.
Yeah.
We've been told we need to get out of the room by 6 o'clock, so we're going to need to wrap this conversation up as quickly as possible. Maybe we'll make them come and actually kick us out. We'll see. But I do want to say one other thing. Some of these questions seem to be questions that could be answered by ledge counsel or other counsel in the context of
Of
reaching
getting
a
the
conclusion
authorization.
in whatever vehicle that could happen. So I don't know that we have to solve that problem here.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good
very,
question,
Very
though.
good question.
It's a very good question.
That maybe we could resolve. Mr. Schweitzer?
Yeah, I think also just so the administration I thought had a very similar proposal in the May revision. So it might be worth taking a look at their land. Now I know there's a problem with them using Prop 98 for it, but it might be worth taking a look at their language as a starting point and recrafting that to whatever your intent is.
Well, I'm encouraging Senator Glazer to do that, yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yeah, and just the only point I want to make is that it's not really a loan from the bond funds, because we are already on the list to receive money if the state bond measure passes that's already owed to us. So it would almost just be like an advance. It's like we're receiving the money that's already owed to us. So then once the bond apportionments start happening, we just wouldn't get it. Basically it's us getting it early. And I think what's shifted in this conversation, originally our proposal was for the state allocation board to take out a loan from wherever, the money pooled investment fund, wherever you might be able to find the money, and loan it to the districts that have been harmed by this facility funding program. But I can hear the shift is happening now, that it would be contingent on the bond passing, which is fine, because really what that means is nobody's out of money. Really what will happen is we will just get an advance of the money we're already owed. And that's how we set the criteria. It's districts that already are on the list to be funded. We're already on the list waiting for our funding.
Yes, and I think the key issue is that the SAB cannot cause money to go out to districts that has not been appropriated for that purpose. So we're
So-
back to the key question, which is the legal authority to
Statutory
appropriate the funds. And so we
authorization.
will certainly revisit the regulation at such time that that authority's been given. So anything else on item 8? Any other public comment on item 8? Okay, I don't see any. Lisa, anything concluding in the final? Okay, anything else from any other?
Well, just for clarification, then we will wait and see if the legislature takes action on the statutory issue, and then bring the issue back for discussion at that appropriate time.
I think what the vice chair and I can do is, before the meeting agenda is noticed, see if there's any indication that we would be able to take action at the June meeting, and if not, it may be appropriate that it would be at the next meeting. So we will work on the agenda setting for that.
Could I just
Senator
ask a
Hancock?
quick
Yes.
question as well? So although I think conventional wisdom says the bond is going to pass, if it does not, we would assume, it says in the proposal that the developer fees from level 3 fees would make up the money. So we would then assume that either the level 3 fees, which can be double the maximum level 2 fees, if I'm correct, would make up the difference, or that the district itself would have to come up with it out of its general fund or out of.
You mean if the loan were
If,
occurred and then
if
the
a
bond-
loan
yes, so
were
I
to
think that would
occur.
be something that would need
so
to be
that-
addressed
So that would.
in the statute.
But I think the
Yeah.
timing, you could just not do it until after the November election. So you would know.
Oh, so then how would it fill the gap?
Well, because otherwise, it's still going to take months and months for the bonds to be sold and the
Yeah,
bonds to
that's
go
true.
out, and could be
That's
another
true.
year.
Right. Okay, thank you. I was just trying to get the timeline straight in my mind. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments come before the board? Seeing none, we will be adjourned. Thank you, everyone.